Doctor, The Architecture of Pulpit Pride by Jim Wise, Disciple of Truth.
In a traditional sanctuary, the architecture and the silence dictate the atmosphere. The heavy wood and high ceilings set an expectation of reverence, but the atmosphere shifts when the leadership begins a series of stage handoffs. Instead of a simple transition, the audience witnesses a highly ritualized exchange, where the primary focus is the recitation of a formal academic title. Doctor, Doctor, Doctor. This greeting loop moves from the senior caster to the executive team and back again. It is a mechanical repetition that mirrors a famous comedic gag from the 1980s cinematic satire Spies Like Us. The repetition cuts through the sanctuary silence. A title intended to signal scholarship is used as a repetitive verbal tick, turning the pulpit transition into a self-referential performance. Following this elaborate display of academic standing, the sequence often lands on a mundane task. The grand introductions conclude with a basic instruction. Thank you, Doctor. Let us now turn in our hymnals. This routine happens during the most solemn moments of the service. It raises a specific question. Why is it necessary to continuously emphasize these degrees from the stage? These pulpit handoffs function as a calculated theater. Leadership panels use title repetition and credential flexing to establish an unquestioned authority loop. This behavior is rooted in the theological establishment, an ecosystem where institutional titles and academic metrics often take precedence over the direct message of the text. Sociologists identify this as a credential heuristic. Normally, a listener evaluates a message based on logic and evidence. Constant title dropping overloads this cognitive shortcut, encouraging the audience to accept claims based on institutional position rather than biblical accuracy. This shift allows a speaker to use high-sounding Greek wordplays or philosophical jargon to mask a lack of biblical substance. For instance, they might redefine the finished work of the cross as a transactional vending machine where forgiveness must be repeatedly requested. The exchange of titles among the leadership team creates a closed feedback loop. This social dialogue signals an absolute consensus among the experts, which acts as a shield against any critical auditing from the congregation. When challenged, the defense is rarely centered on the text itself. It often becomes a question of rank. Who are you to question Dr. So-and-so? These credentials function as armor, shielding the leadership from accountability and neutralizing challenges from anyone who hasn't sat in their classrooms. This specific form of institutional gatekeeping is not a new development. It mirrors a religious structure that has existed for 2 millennia. Ancient religious leaders utilized the same mechanics. They sought public recognition in crowded markets, demanding that the common people address them with elevated titles to maintain their social and spiritual standing. Matthew 23 contains a specific warning against this behavior, identifying the prideful desire to be greeted as Rabbi, Rabbi as an inverted spiritual focus. The ancient rabbi routine and the modern doctor loop serve the same purpose. Both rely on titles to create an artificial distance between the leadership and the assembly. These systems convince the average person they are unqualified to understand the scriptures on their own. It forces a reliance on a credentialed class to interpret what should be a direct message. Today's pulpit routine is an institutionalized reboot of that same spirit. It is the same intellectual pride, updated for a modern seminary setting. Returning to the movie gag from the opening reveals the difference between a trope and the reality of this religious dynamic. In a satire, characters use fake titles to fit in. In this setting, leaders use real credentials to lend weight to teaching that often contradicts the historical finality of the cross. This academic authority is used to sell a transactional model, teaching believers to beg for forgiveness that the scriptures declare was settled 2,000 years ago. The official titles make this works-based logic sound prestigious. Recognizing the doctor routine allows you to see the mechanism behind the performance. It is a structural strategy designed to lower your analytical defenses. You have the authority to bypass these gatekeepers. Spiritual instruction should be evaluated by the integrity of the message and its alignment with the text, not by academic pomp. True teaching does not require a theater of titles. It is found in the substance of the truth, regardless of the institutional letters attached to the speaker's name.
This is the
traditional
brief on the
sanctuary.
Little Season Truth Telegram community. If you're tired of surface-level theology, consider this an urgent invitation to discover the precise, legal realities of Scripture by joining a seriously rigorous, dedicated discussion group. First, the bedrock foundation here is Christ Jesus as the true Goal, our kinsman redeemer, who absolutely completed our legal reconciliation at Calvary. Mainstream theology kind of feels like reading a flimsy summary, right? But understanding Christ's role as the Goal, that's like opening up the actual, binding legal contract of our redemption. They dive deep into the eternal destiny framework to see exactly how redemption operates from Genesis straight into eternity future. Second, they focus on structural and prophetic timelines, like the millennial reign of King Jesus and the little season of great deception. And get this, they contextualize these realities under a physical, geocentric dome. So you gotta ask, how does recognizing the physical structure of a geocentric dome completely change our understanding of the mechanics behind the little season of great deception? Finally, it's all about daily Socratic engagement. Look, they don't just lecture, they host daily Socratic word studies to dissect original texts line by line. You can join them right now at t.me+W5P3HUVB00WOTX. Now, it's definitely comfortable to passively listen to sermons, but are you actually prepared to engage in rigorous, iron-sharpening Socratic dialogue every single day? If you are ready to move past the broad strokes and finally dig into the precise substance and legal order of the Word, it is time to pull up a seat at the table and join the conversation.